We just want to show what we're about. You know, like social media and stuff, there's only so much you can get across in terms of your personality. And I think for a way for us to get across what we're like and what we're like with each other for the fans to see.
He is part of the biggest boy band on the planet.
Harry Styles very quickly emerged as kind of the ladies' man, heartthrob of this group.
Harry's a lot of fun, and I think you just gravitate towards someone like that.
Harry knows how to make headlines, and he knows how to kind of wind up and excite his fans.
Harry Styles rose to fame when he appeared on The X Factor as 1/5 of One Direction. And since then, his fame has gone on to reach levels beyond his wildest dreams.
Harry cites his musical influences as Elvis and the Beatles. Now, Harry is a great singer. It's just not all about the looks, but he's really aesthetically gorgeous.
And I think from the very beginning, Harry was kind of labeled as the heartthrob.
I like Harry. I like Zayn. Harry, I love you.
Yeah, I think especially this year, it seems to have been just a massive, massive year for British music. I think, you know, Adele, Mumford & Sons, Ed Sheeran, they've all had huge years, and we're very honoured to be part of that. And it's nice that kind of tonight that's celebrated, because this year it seems to have been especially kind of big for British music. So it's great. It's, you know, we're happy, so it's great.
He is One Direction's leading man. He is Harry Styles.
He was the heartthrob. He was the one that everybody wanted.
So Harry was always the fun guy. So when we were backstage at X Factor, you'd be knocking around trying to find out your bits of gossip as a journalist. And I remember one story saying, oh, well, Harry's gone missing. And I was like, well, where's he gone missing? And he'd apparently been snogging one of the production people in a cupboard. And so you were constantly checking. People backstage were checking cupboards to see if Harry was in there snogging one of the costume girls or one of the runners or whoever it was. Harry's a lot of fun, and I think you just gravitate towards someone like that.
Harry Styles is the youngest member of One Direction. His curly hair, along with his sweet yet mischievous demeanor, has made him a fan favorite.
Even before the show finished, when Matt Cardle won the show, Harry ran up and embraced him and was overheard saying some very salacious remark about basically how many women Matt was going to get because he won. And I think from that very first sexually charged comment, I think girls were like, whoa, who is this guy? You know, he's like 17, he's acting like he's, you know, Elvis Presley, or he's certainly, you know, Casanova. And I think from the very beginning, Harry was kind of labeled as the heartthrob. The whole world, or at least in the UK, took notice of the fact that this guy obviously clearly had something going on. I think Harry, it's a combination of the very innocent schoolboy face that he has with this very cheeky, little bit dirty, somewhat possibly confident and aggressive sexual side that he clearly has as well.
I think you know you're doing something right when, even though you're one of the most famous men in the world, even though millions of fans are buying your records and coming to see you in concert as part of One Direction, but when the other artists and VIPs and celebrities want to hang out with you and meet you backstage and have a conversation with you, as I've witnessed many times with Harry Styles, you know that something's going right. He's a very nice, genuine guy. He'll always make time to not only meet his fans, but also spend time with other artists backstage. He loves talking about music. He'll talk to people like Ed Sheeran about songwriting and lyrics. And, you know, he's interesting as well in the sense that he doesn't give too much away, and I really respect him for that. He doesn't give many interviews. He doesn't say a lot. He's a very witty guy as well. He's a very charming guy, but ultimately I think he's a very talented guy.
After their X Factor journey, One Direction were huge in the UK, but it was only when they started to become big in the US that they began to attract worldwide attention.
One Direction would not be where they were today if it had not been for the American market. It's not to say that the Brits didn't love One Direction, that they weren't popular over here, but they might have very easily, in fact, I think, gone the way of other X Factor sensations here in the UK.
Obviously, America has taken to 1D in a big way. What have the American fans been like, Niall?
our fans are quite. Our fans are quite the same all around the world. In my best Dublin accent.
I don't think anybody who's working on the band themselves actually expected it to be what it is. You know, they can't leave a hotel without being mobbed. I was in New York recently, and I was with a UK celebrity, James Corden. He can go anywhere in New York, and he's a big star. One Direction were in a hotel, and there were 70 girls camped out overnight. So if you put it on that level, you just think, okay, A, why are their parents letting them do this? But B, what are these boys going to be able to do in life? But anywhere they go, it's exactly the same. They're mobbed.
I think what has launched them into international superstardom is the fact that the rest of the world, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, has reacted as if they were the Beatles, you know, coming over, kind of taking the rest of the English-speaking world. That has launched them into the superstar stratosphere. I think there's something about the fact that British people know that this boy band group was created on a reality show, that all these boys come from very humble, normal backgrounds, you know. It's something about the familiarity of that maybe holds them back from being hailed as the next Elvis, whereas to the rest of the world, who didn't know anything about where they came from and how they were kind of put together, they really are like the Beatles, and sort of the mystery around them is actually helping them, I think, in the other countries.
Another contributing factor to the band's astronomical success is the rise of social media. The use of Twitter and Facebook allows Harry and the boys to be in constant communication with their adoring fans.
It means that Harry could get off a plane and thousands of fans will know exactly what time he's going to have tea at his mum's house, and they will be there waiting outside. They almost seem to know what One Direction are doing before One Direction know themselves. It's amazing, the network and how they just share this information. Quite scary, in fact. I've seen on Tumblr some fans just kind of tweeting pictures of Harry. I think he was in LA and he was in a hotel, like at the hotel pool, and this fan looked like that she was in the bushes, and she was just tweeting different pictures of him topless. He's walking across there, he's going to the toilet, and then just posting it live on Tumblr so everyone can watch what he's doing at that moment in time.
And they've all got millions of followers. They're all making sure that, you know, when the single comes out, it's instantly spread across the world. You know, you can't underestimate the amount of power that these boys do have.
We were desperate for a boy band. We were desperate for some entertainment. I mean, you know, take it back 15 years. We all loved Take That. And then we had a bit of Five and a bit of Boyzone. But if you look at Take That, they were the Marks and Spencers of pop. And if you look at Boyzone, they were like the little oldie version. So now there was no competition. The field was wide open. And I think it's down to young girls who follow them on Twitter, getting social interaction via Facebook, and really old-fashioned fan base. If you like the look of the boys, you're going to invest in them. And that's what's happened.
The moment they came off X Factor in the UK, there were kind of teenage girls globally who'd got wind of the fact that there was this quite good-looking band in the UK. They started watching them on YouTube, they followed them on Twitter, and then that's how this network of incredible fans begins who are obsessed with finding out their every move. And One Direction are not stupid. They've got their whole kind of social networking campaign. There's somebody in charge of social media from the One Direction management team. They've all got their own Twitter accounts. It's how they make sure that they appear that they're really close to their fans. So they'll retweet things, they'll really engage with them, and that is something so powerful that once upon a time pop stars never had. It means that the fans really believe that they are connecting with these idols and they stand a chance of going out with them.
And also, you can't underestimate the power that the fans have. You know, if any girl goes near one of those boys, then they're on Twitter, they're in trouble. Because those One Direction girls and those fans do not take any prisoners. So if you're out there and you're going to go near one of the guys, watch out, because you're going to get some abuse.
All of these things have propelled this group whose fans are primarily young people who are kind of obsessed with social media into the stratosphere. It's Justin Bieber times 1 million. You know, it's exponentially grown. You know, as social media has grown exponentially, and Justin Bieber was just a kid on YouTube. Now there's about 10 different websites that you can, you know, use to promote someone. It's extraordinary, and I think One Direction really epitomizes the power of that medium.
Everything. They all have their like individual personalities, and that like they're all like different. Like,
and they're amazing singers.
And they're really good singers, and they're really good looking. And they let their personalities show when they're like singing and when they're fit.
They're well fit.
I like Harry.
I like Zayn.
Harry, I love you.
There's one for each of you.
Yeah.
So how was it meeting them?
Oh, amazing. We were like first in the queue.
Yeah.
We've been here since 12 o'clock today.
I had to get the train up from Kent. We had to get the train up, like, and I was ringing my parents in the middle of town on the phone, like, almost in tears, like, oh my God, I need to go to London, and I had to persuade them. It was so hard to persuade them, and then eventually they're like, yeah, you can go. I was like, oh my God, so we got the train up here. We literally had to run from the tube station to get here. Story.
God, Laura.
So how did you guys hear about it, and when did you? So you heard through Twitter, and
I like 11:30.
So where were you when you heard?
McDonald's. We were eating lunch at McDonald's.
So how's it feel? How's it feel now, just so randomly today, that you've met them?
Amazing.
We didn't expect to, and then just random.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, girls.
Harry Styles' journey from obscurity to worldwide superstardom is an inspiring tale that ultimately began with humble roots. Harry Styles was born in Worcestershire in the UK in February 1st, 1994. Styles was raised in Holmes Chapel, Cheshire, after his parents moved there along with his older sister, Gemma, when she was a baby. He attended Holmes Chapel Comprehensive School as a youngster.
At the age of 7, his parents sadly divorced. He was raised by his mum, Anne, with his sister Gemma. But it was pretty obvious to everyone at school, at his comprehensive, that he was a good-looking boy who had talent. He could sing, he could perform, and he was loved by both staff and pupils. And I think it was obvious he was a star in the making.
He talks about when his mum and dad split up, and says he remembers crying and being really upset at the thought that they weren't going to be together anymore. But I think he's been quite open-minded. They've got quite a liberal family, and when she got together with her next husband, he was really pleased when the husband proposed. So I think he's close to everyone in his family, and I think they've brought him up in a way that is kind of anything goes.
Harry grew up in his household listening to classic bands like the Beatles, rock and roll icons like Elvis Presley. I mean, for a young guy of the late 90s and noughties, he was loving music from the 50s and 60s, and I'm sure that has also gone on to basically form the Harry Styles we have today. He is a rock star, in my opinion, in the making. Many people could say that he will be the next Mick Jagger, but whilst working part-time at the age of 16 at the W. Mandeville Bakery, he loved the women there, they loved him. He was a bit of a cheeky chappy, he was a bit of a rock and roller at heart.
Now, Harry is a great singer, it's just not all about the looks. I do remember watching the X Factor and kind of being blown away by these 5 guys. Harry just looked so good, and I felt bad because, like, I'm over 30.
Harry talks about his musical influences, and he was in a band, lead singer in a band called White Eskimo, quite rocky. He's kind of, I think he really sees himself as quite a serious musician, and he talks about how One Direction's sound is going to have to change slightly. He says it's important that we are performing music that we really enjoy and that we really like. He really looks up to Chris Martin and Coldplay. He talks about the Beatles and how his dad really liked the Beatles and he listens to them, and obviously, you know, there's a lot, he's got a lot in common with the Beatles, the kind of hysteria that there is surrounding it. But it's quite telling that he talks about how One Direction are going to have to change their sound slightly, because you could imagine he's the one, I think, will get a bit fidgety later on and start thinking, no, we got to be playing some serious songs. I don't want us to be playing cheesy boy band numbers. So I think Harry is one to watch in that respect.
There's that great performance he did at a friend's wedding where he performed with his band. You know, he formed White Eskimo whilst he was a teenager at school in the comprehensive school, and he really does release his inner rock star in that performance. It's a classic Bryan Adams 80s hit record. but he's got the sort of Mick Jagger mannerisms. He's in a tie, he's in a suit with a shirt. He looks suited and booted, but he looks like he could be the next big rock and roll star. I mean, he should have been listening to pop, electro, or just listening to R&B or a bit of Rihanna, but no, he's on stage giving us some classy Bryan Adams, and I, for one, was convinced.
In 2010, Harry Styles managed to make it through the initial rounds of the X Factor auditions. He ended up in front of thousands of fans and X Factor judges Simon Cowell, Nicole Scherzinger, and Louis Walsh. His audition was confident and oozed star quality and would ultimately change his life forever.
You've got to be a very confident young man at the age of 16 to audition for the UK X Factor TV show in front of Simon Cowell and perform a classic song from the Motown legend that is Stevie Wonder, one of the greatest performers and vocalists of all time. But young Harry Styles is 16 in front of Simon Cowell and Nicole Scherzinger, of course we remember her from the Pussycat Dolls, and Louis Walsh, the former manager of Westlife and Boyzone. In front of those three people and the hundreds of people in that arena for that audition, he sang Stevie Wonder, and he sang it ridiculously well.
I never thought through love we'd be making one as lovely as she. But isn't she lovely, made from love?
You could see Simon loved him, he had a glint in his eye, the crowd loved him. Nicole Scherzinger obviously said he was a talented boy, he looked good on camera. Louis Walsh actually said, "You're a bit too young, I think you need development." But he won them over, and it was the first time he obviously got a sense that he would become a household name in the UK.
Unfortunately, Harry didn't progress through the rounds as a solo contestant. However, this wasn't to be the end of his X Factor journey. He was brought back along with 4 other boys, Louis Tomlinson, Niall Horan, Zayn Malik, and Liam Payne, to form the boy band One Direction. Their X Factor adventure was just getting started.
Well, X Factor, as we know, is the biggest show possibly now in the world. When all the boys of One Direction first came on, you did kind of think, they're not solo material, he won't do well, he's cute. You kind of went through them all in your mind.
It's just phenomenal to think that this powerhouse group that is taking the world by storm were actually not good enough as individuals to even make the show, let alone win the show. They weren't even good enough to get a spot on the show. And I don't know if they've sent Nicole Scherzinger flowers yet or not, but they certainly ought to, because at the time, Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls was a judge on the X Factor, and it was she who decided to take these boys who all had great potential on their own but weren't quite good enough as solo artists and put them together in a boy band supergroup. It was her idea, and it was an absolutely, obviously, genius plan.
Simon Cowell had the groups in his category, and One Direction made it through to the final, so they ended up coming third behind Rebecca Ferguson and Matt Cardle. And you just have to look at what has happened to them to realise they really should have won the show.
I met the boys all the way right at the beginning, so I'd be down at X Factor, hanging out with the judges, meeting all of the contestants, and you get introduced to them, you'd hang out with them, and One Direction backstage were an absolute nightmare. Anyone behind the scenes on X Factor was just like, oh my god, we've lost Harry, we've lost Louis, where have they gone? You know, that one's hiding in a cupboard, that one's trying on new clothes. They were the life and soul of X Factor that year. So it was a really exciting time to be with a band that you knew were going to go places.
I think all the way through the X Factor, you saw One Direction just grow and grow. In terms of their confidence on stage, their popularity, the screams in the studio when they came on stage were just kind of deafening, much bigger than the screams for anybody else. And even when you're watching it at home, because obviously X Factor is a real appointment to view, so people gather around their telly, they'd have X Factor nights, and everyone was talking about One Direction, whatever age they were. So you'd have really young girls, they'd all have a One Direction member that they really liked, and then you'd have people in their kind of 40s, grands, loving One Direction. A lot of older women were obsessed with different members of One Direction, and the great thing about it was there was something for everyone.
The time was very right for One Direction. There wasn't another boy band. You know, we were all in the showbiz industry itching for another boy band to come through. JLS were on the down low. You know, you had the girl groups that had all had huge success. But the time was perfect. And I'd be very surprised if someone like Simon Cowell, in the back of his head, didn't have the plan from the start. You know, he's a very astute guy. And 5 young boys after the back of Justin Bieber, it was obviously going to be a huge money spinner.
It was clear from the early stages of the band's formation that Harry was the member who appeared to be getting the most attention. During the X Factor rounds, he would be getting lots of camera time, and all the teenage girls seemed to be saving their loudest screams for Harry.
If you had to pick 2 of the lads that really stood out from those X Factor auditions, in the early days, the genesis of One Direction, it was Harry and it was Liam. They were the 2 favourites that the audience, I think, really connected with. They got the big reaction in the arena auditions. The camera and the TV show seemed to focus on them a lot more than the other 3. But of course, the magic happened when all 5 came together. But yeah, I think at the beginning, all eyes really were on Harry Styles, and a lot of people in the media were predicting that he would become a big star of the show.
Now, bear in mind, Simon Cowell has spent an awful lot of time working in the United States. He spends at least half the year there, if not more, and he has a very good sense of what the American market is looking for. The fact that when One Direction finished the UK X Factor, coming in 3rd, and Syco immediately signed them for a £2 million deal, says to me that Simon Cowell was already thinking of the American market and the potential therein. You know, Simon Cowell does not miss a trick, and I think another producer on the show might have thought, okay, this band did just maybe all right in the UK. Their single debuted at #2, not #1, and you know, other groups, other individuals like Matt Cardle had a bit more momentum, Rebecca Ferguson, but Simon Cowell saw from the very beginning that this band could explode across the pond, and it certainly has.
You know, Justin Bieber had his little moment. Obviously, he'd been a massive success around the world. Then you had 5 Justin Biebers. Could it get any better? It just couldn't. You know, they were cute. They appealed to every single different girl that wanted to fancy one of them. They had the right music. They worked with the right people. It was a package. And then teamed together with the fact that you've got Facebook, Twitter, all of these social networks. The timing was just perfect for them to break through.
Despite only coming in 3rd place, the boys weren't about to let that stop them from motoring on and recording their debut album, which went on to achieve mainstream success.
I remember the anticipation around that single was quite incredible. The music press, I mean, every press was just waiting to hear it. And it actually was first released on YouTube, and you didn't see the video to start with, so you just saw the kind of lyrics play up. And actually, that's where part of the skill came in the marketing of One Direction, because this fever was, you know, was really building, and the lyrics for What Makes You Beautiful are exactly part of the appeal of One Direction, because they really tap in to what young girls are thinking and what they want these guys to be saying back to them. So it's like, you know, you don't need to have any makeup, it's what's inside that counts, all the cheesy stuff that every girl wants to truly believe One Direction thinks about them. So it was a really powerful marketing campaign, just releasing some of the lyrics and not seeing any of the video footage to start with. And it broke pre-order sales for Sony, so it was incredible.
Well, one of the things I love about the song is that it's so catchy. It's bubblegum pop. You know, it's a really positive song with a message about how beautiful this girl is who isn't aware of her own prettiness. I mean, it's about as affirming and up as you can get. And also in the video, you know, they just kind of had the words over and over again, and it was also very clever because nobody recognized these boys' faces at that time. You know, they weren't well-known faces, so they really made the video all about the song at that time, and I thought that was very clever as well.
It was that single that you just wanted to hear on the radio. It was everywhere. It didn't just work for the UK, it worked for America as well. The boys looked cute, they were running around on the beach. You know, they literally looked like they'd just been polished, preened and styled to perfection.
If you look back at One Direction's debut video, the video for What Makes You Beautiful, I mean, they look so different to the band we now see today playing arenas around the world. They were fresh-faced, they were so young, kooky little haircuts, linen look, very pastel, looked like something you might get in a Gap commercial. They were frolicking on the beach, they were enjoying being out in the outdoors, they were doing some traveling down a road in a Jeep, they were exploring the mountains, and they were having basically pop fun with the pastels. But it was the perfect video. It was massive on social media. Fans loved it. And of course, it helped the single, more importantly, hit #1.
It has a very strong, not very subtle, psychological message, which is, I want you. Do you want me? I want you. You're amazing. And I think that was very much a part of their initial image in getting young girls to like them. They seemed very accessible. They seemed like you could date one of them. You know, they didn't seem to be arrogant or haughty in any way. And I think that was a big part of their initial success.
I think with Up All Night, Simon took no chances. Simon and Psycho decided they were going to be teamed up with the right people. It was their moment to shine. Ed Sheeran, Kelly Clarkson, you know, they really got all of the big guys in the business to get together and ensure that this album was going to be, you know, a huge launch pad. And they weren't just thinking the UK, they were thinking worldwide. Australia, Asia, everywhere was very important. It was the album that they took no risks on.
And I think that was very savvy, again, because it gave kind of them an instant credibility and an instant name recognition in terms of fans of, you know, Kelly Clarkson. Obviously, these boys were good enough to sing with her. Bear in mind, Kelly Clarkson owes Simon Cowell a few favors because she was the winner of American Idol several years ago. So Simon clearly wasn't afraid to call in some favors in making this album, and it definitely paid off.
For a debut album, the success of Up All Night for One Direction is just quite incredible. Debuted at #2 in the UK, it went straight to #1 in 20 countries, and the biggest mark of their success was the success in Canada and America, because it was the first UK act ever to get its debut at #1 in the Canadian charts and the US Billboard 200, and that was when everyone knew this band was something very special.
At this point, Harry was no stranger to making headlines and filling showbiz columns. When he started dating X Factor presenter Caroline Flack, the showbiz world had a field day reporting the story, as there was such a big age gap between the two.
Now, Harry and Caroline got to know each other on the X Factor because she hosted the spin-off show Extra Factor. And there were rumours that came out about those two getting it on, and no one quite believed it, because there was Harry, who was 17 at the time, she was 32, quite well connected, and so to put her and this young guy from One Direction together, people didn't quite believe it. Then stories came out that they'd all been at a rap party for X Factor, they'd snogged. He'd said that he fancied her for a long time, so in interviews he was quite clever, Harry, because he'd just keep quite cheeky, quite charming, and I think he's one of those people that he thinks if he puts the name out there enough and expresses his interest, then he might win, and he did.
You know, going after a woman when you're 17 who's 32 years old, and by all accounts he pursued her relentlessly, is something that most people, most men would certainly admire and say, you know, good on ya.
I think it's one of those things where people were perplexed as to why he would date her. But look, he's a 17, 18-year-old boy. Here's a girl, I say a girl, a woman, who's kind of like experienced, you know? And of course he would fall for her, you know? It's kind of part of growing up. That would normally be hidden away from your family and friends. But sadly, every grisly aspect was revealed, and it wasn't pretty.
He seems to like his women older, and actually he said that his cut-off point would be 40-something. Do you know, it's pretty old. I don't know what it is about the older women that he likes, but he really does go for them.
I think a lot of people like myself found it disturbing, not necessarily a 13-year age difference, but the fact that he was only 17 and she was 32. And Caroline Flack actually got a lot of hate mail, death threats. She got a lot of bad press for the fact that she was, in fact, dating and possibly sleeping with such a young boy. There were lots of paparazzi shots of them emerging from each other's places in the morning, which kind of fueled a lot of the speculation that they had, in fact, a sexual relationship. And I think it disturbed a lot of people. The fact that he was only 17 and she was clearly a mature woman of 32. What it did for Harry, though, was kind of cement in people's minds that he was the Lothario of the group. He was the heartthrob. He was the one that everybody wanted.
I remember seeing a picture of Caroline going to his house at night. He was waiting, there was a picture, he was waiting outside his house for her, clearly, with a Tesco carrier bag. So he'd obviously done some shopping to cook a romantic meal. And then a few minutes later, so he goes in, then a few minutes later you see her kind of sneakily going into the same house with a pillow under her arm, which is a bit weird. I don't know why she was bringing her own pillow to his house. And then the Paps were waiting outside the next day and they didn't emerge until several hours later. So that's when people really knew that something was properly going on between those two. And the press went mad for it because it was, you know, it was a really successful new boy band, a TV presenter who you'd think, what are you doing? Is this good for your career? You know, there was so much criticism for her, calling her a cougar and saying, what are you doing with this young boy? People interviewed his mum saying, do you agree with your young son being corrupted by this woman? And the mum came out and said, you know, we're quite a liberal family. Whoever Harry wants to go out with, I had an age difference with Harry's dad, so she refused to be drawn on it. But yes, Harry and Caroline, or Haroline, as they were known for a while, they went on for several months. And it was only when Harry and One Direction went to the States that it had to come to an end.
Yes. First of all, we would like to thank every single person that voted for us. The fans around the world have been absolutely incredible to us since we told them that we got nominated for a Brit. And it's an absolute pleasure to collect it. And it's just thank you very much.
Guys, I'm hosting this press conference. Hello. Well done for that, by the way. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, who's going to get the award at home?
We're going to break it into 5. We decided earlier on, yeah, we're going to break the award into 5 and smash it.
Either that or photocopy it, I think.
So who gets the head?
I want the head.
Well, I guess you've got the head.
Well, I think what surprised the world at the Brit Awards was that this was really Adele's night. You know, she had swept the awards, and Adele had just been feted at the Grammys, where she had been kind of hailed as the reigning queen of singing. So the fact that anyone beside Adele won anything that night was a surprise. The fact that One Direction won Best Single over Adele really goes to show kind of the power of their fan base at this point.
With all of the fans that they've got behind them, they've got to stand a really good chance of winning. Musically, lyrically, was it the best song? I think when it was announced, everyone went, well, that was obviously going to happen, but come on, there were much better songs in that category. When you're going up against the likes of Adele, you know, which have got huge songs that have gone global as well, you just think, all right, you One Direction fans did the job. You got your votes, and they got the award.
But it really just cemented them as such a powerful presence on the pop scene. And they were so overwhelmingly excited. I think that people were watching them thinking, are they going to be drinking too much? Are they going to... Because, you know, they're 5 really young boys, and they did very well to kind of contain their excitement and not be too badly behaved. They've obviously got a lot of people watching them and saying, do not go off the rails, because otherwise it's going to look bad for us. But they were genuinely so excited, jumping up and down, and you couldn't help but be pleased for them.
You've just announced... guys... Hey! Now, guys, you've announced you're about to go on tour again.
Yes, our tickets go on sale on Saturday for our UK and Ireland arena tour. We've just come off a tour, so it's absolutely very exciting to announce that we're going back on tour, so it's going to be fun. We're going back on tour in February and March, and the tickets come on sale on Saturday.
What part of your life is still normal?
Us.
Not this part, definitely not this part.
Sleeping.
Yeah. I think, you know, for, you know, we're 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, people like us don't get to do stuff like what we're doing very often, and we just feel so grateful to, you know, all the fans who've put us where we are, all the you know, radio, music channels who've helped us along the way, and you know, we're just so grateful to have this massive opportunity, and we're having fun and working hard, and hopefully it keeps going.
And if you could snog any artist in the room tonight at the Brits,
Adele.
who would it be?
Niall Horan.
Who?
Adele.
Adele. Said me.
Definitely Adele.
Rihanna.
I might try it on the way back.
Rihanna's looking hot in that dress tonight.
Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much. If you could hold your Brit up again for everybody. And
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Jabba! Thanks again.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You cannot deny the popular appeal of this band, and the fact that so many people enjoyed their music of all ages absolutely came through that night at the Brit Awards. And I think the band was as surprised as anybody else in the audience that they won, but that doesn't make it any less deserved.
In August 2012, the group's record sales exceeded 8 million singles, 3 million albums, and 1 million DVDs. And to top off an unforgettable year, the boys performed What Makes You Beautiful at the 2012 Olympics closing ceremony in London.
Some of the biggest names in UK music got the chance to perform at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and for One Direction to be invited cemented their pop authority and cemented the fact that they had become pop royalty in the world. I mean, not everyone got the chance to perform at that show, and they played a very integral part when they performed What Makes You Beautiful on the back of a moving truck. Who else got to do that? It helped as well in the handover to the Brazil Games in 2016, so they had a vital role to play.
And to be chosen to do this, you had to, you know, really have proven yourself. They're used to thousands, tens of thousands of girls screaming at them in arenas all over the world, but it's all quite concentrated. Here they were playing to a global audience, and they must have known at that point that, yeah, they'd arrived.
And I know from speaking to them after they played at that Olympic Stadium, after they played that huge concert, that it meant so much to them. They admitted to me that they were incredibly nervous beforehand, but wow, they nailed their performance, and a lot of people were talking about it afterwards.
And you know, it was the cream of British culture right now. And that's exactly what One Direction are. And their marketing has been so clever, because in America, there are red buses and red telephone boxes in their videos, and there's this real almost kitsch culture of the UK. They're flying the British flag, and everyone knows them for it.
Not long after the memorable Olympics closing ceremony performance, the boys were straight back in the studio recording their second studio album. Take Me Home was released in November 2012. The album's lead single, Live While We're Young, was released in September 2012 and reached the top 10 in almost every country it charted in, and recorded the highest one-week opening sales figures for a song by a non-US artist in the United States.
By the time One Direction released their second album, Take Me Home, the Directioners were at fever pitch to get anything and everything from this band. They were the biggest selling pop phenomena of 2012 worldwide. Besides Adele, they really owned and dominated the charts around the world. I mean, wherever they went, South America, Europe, Australia, the USA, Canada, you name it, One Direction was selling records and selling out arenas as well with their incredible tour. So of course, the album instantly debuted at #1 in the UK. It broke records when it debuted at 1 in America. It became the fastest selling album of 2012, hit #1 in 34 countries, and of course, stayed there for a number of weeks in most territories.
Live While We're Young was a huge hit. On YouTube alone, it had over 200 million hits, and it was a top 10 single all over the world. And they proved that the myth of having that tricky second album, well, they just blew it away, and they're nailing it all the time. Huge albums, huge success, huge following, everything's going their way.
The video for Live While We're Young was the perfect One Direction video for a perfect pop record. Here's a song all about going crazy, crazy, crazy. That's what they did by basically having their own like mini outdoor festival. They chose a field, a location in the southeast of England in the county of Kent. It was all secret, hidden away from view. view, although a few paparazzi, I happen to know, found the location. They hid in the bushes with their long lenses, trying to get the shot, a candid opportunity, but they were removed by One Direction's security detail. So they erected several tents, they brought in all their best mates, they lit a barbecue, they basically found a little bit of water, which they got involved with. They bombed in there, they swam, they took their tops off, they went crazy. It looked like the sort of festival you wanted to be invited to, and of course, what happened? They released it on all the social media channels and their fans went crazy. It was the perfect video for a perfect song.
Let's go crazy, crazy, crazy till we see the sun. I know we only met, but let's pretend it's love. And never, never, never stop for anyone. Tonight, let's get some and live while we're young.
The video for Live While We're Young shows the boys at a festival just being young guys having a ball. Ironically, they can't really do that now. Harry Styles, Zayn Malik goes down the street, they're followed by paparazzi, and sometimes they really do wish they could have more normality in their lives. Sure, they wouldn't change the jet-set lifestyle and the success they've had in the #1s, but there is an element to not being able to go down the pub and just have a pint with a couple pals.
And I think it's fair to say One Direction ended 2012 when they took to the stage at Madison Square Gardens in New York, because I was there and I saw that concert. They ended their incredible year and they celebrated in serious style, knowing that they'd sold millions of albums around the world.
There was a feeling that the second album was quite rushed, as in it came out a year after the first album. However, it's pretty common practice and is dated back from the 60s that bands need to produce an album every year or so. Look at Rihanna, 7 in 7 years. The danger is that you could have burnout. But when you look at Live While We're Young, the main single from the second album, I don't see how you could possibly argue that it wasn't a success and it wasn't good, because it was a huge hit. Ultimately, there's such a hunger for One Direction fans to have more from their idols that you really had to produce an album a year after the first. Otherwise, people would be really frustrated.
It's just flattering. It's just nice to know you're getting supported for something you love doing, and we're just 5 young lads that, you know, love singing and women performing, and we love women, and women seem to really general. I promise. We love women, and women seem to like us. So yeah, it's wicked.
It's just insane that, you know, for people to kind of want to see us to that extent is incredible for us, and obviously we've made the album, really proud of it. So we just want to make a good show for everyone to come and enjoy, and hopefully it will be. So.
We've really got the buzz for it because we did the Radio 1 Teen Awards at Wembley Arena to 9,000 people, I think, and we just got the buzz back again, and we're just really excited.
It's made us want to go on tour, so
we're quite frankly buzzing. we're excited now. When we come up for the first show, we will be, you know,
as well as it being, you know, massively flattering that people want to spend money to come and see us. It's like there's a lot of expectation, and I think there is a build-up of anticipation when you get to it. But once you're on the stage and you're performing, you just it kind of takes over. You just become a performer.
Like when we're in rehearsals for this tour, all we're going to want to do is get back on stage. Like we're going to be like, just hurry up and let's get on tour quick.
I know, it's performing your own songs as well. Like every artist always, like when you dream of doing this, like what you want to do. So it's going to be amazing.
We work as a group on a whole.
We co-wrote a few songs on the album as well. So that was really exciting to work with producers and stuff. We had our choice of how this order of the album goes. There's loads of things that we get our choice on. Really, we just have our input every so often just to.
But even if we haven't written on a song and something comes in and we're like, oh, I'm not too sure about this lyric. Obviously that's not classed as a co-write, but we still, even the songs that we don't write on, have a little look at it, and if we don't agree with it, we'll have our say.
What goes in the sleeve and stuff. So it's pretty good.
Every day is different. We have so much fun. And it's just, I don't know, I can't imagine being like a solo artist or something now, because you have so much fun in a group and just kind of blending together, and that's what makes it all enjoyable.
That's what makes it enjoy.
Sorry.
No way. I feel sorry for him.
Are you ready yet? How ready are you?
He must be pretty embarrassed after that. I would be.
I'd be crying. I'd walk up downstairs.
Nah, it's cool. I wouldn't say I miss anything particularly except for like my family and friends. You don't get to spend as much time with your family. But other than that, it's amazing. You know, we've been given a great opportunity and we're just running with it. different, but you know, it's kind of like times like that. If you haven't seen family for a while, sometimes it's quite hard. And when you really think about it, I don't think any of us would change it.
Well, it's like being at university a little bit, isn't it? Like being away from home and stuff.
I don't know. I've never been to university.
No, I mean neither. But I mean, like we're at the same stage as like other kids in their lives where they be away from home, like so. Yeah. It's kind of normal, really.
It's like, yeah. It's just.
You get days off at uni. I think our friendship's quite evident, like on like interviews like this. Like we're just full of banter. We just have a great laugh. It's like 5 best friends at school.
At this point in their short careers, One Direction had released 2 multi-platinum albums and had played to millions of adoring fans all over the world. And once again, Harry Styles was the talk of the showbiz world, this time for dating one of Hollywood's hottest stars.
When Taylor Swift and Harry Styles got together, there was a feeling that, not that he was punching above his weight, you know, they're huge, but Taylor Swift is up there. Everyone knows who she is. And she's a few years older, and she's nailed it. She's nailed her solo career, and you can't take that away from her. She's got a solo career, whereas he's still part of a band. So when she started dating him, it was like a real credibility check for him. You know, Taylor Swift's interested, that's good. Did both their careers a lot of good, but there was a lot of jealousy towards Taylor Swift from the girls. One Direction fans are pretty passionate.
I mean, everybody was talking about that relationship and the fact that they potentially were dating, were a couple, they'd been hanging out in Los Angeles, hanging out backstage at MTV Awards ceremonies, and of course she was very coy about revealing at first that this indeed was going on. Fans obviously kicked up as well on Twitter, because let's be honest, if you're a fan of Harry Styles and you're a girl, you don't want anybody going near your favourite member of the band.
It looks like Taylor Swift gets around a bit because she dates quite a lot of guys, but you'd have to say that she also tries to come over as quite virginal. And I think with Harry, it was the first bad boy she dated. The first guy who liked her, but saw the world as being a bit of a candy shop and he could just have his pick. And he was not stopping at Taylor Swift.
But they were, you know, at the time, probably the most high-profile pop celebrity couple in the world. But as we now know, that wasn't meant to be.
You don't want to get on Taylor Swift's wrong side. You don't want to be the guy who breaks her heart, because she's notorious for writing about her experiences. So when she sang I Knew You Were Trouble at the Brit Awards in front of him, I think every girl who'd ever been wronged was like, yes! You know, because Harry's kind of sitting there quite meekly and she's singing away. That song, I think she's admitted, is about him. And she knew from the moment he walked into a room that he was trouble, but sometimes the magnetism towards a bad boy is pretty strong, and it was for her. She couldn't help herself.
Barry.
The boy with the curls.
Liam. I like it. Why is that? He's cute, he's charming, he's good looking, you know, he's got the dimples.
Who wouldn't love it?
He's the youngest as well.
Yeah, there's a history of boy bands are the youngest, isn't there? I said that at the start.
What is it about Harry Styles that makes him popular with the ladies? Well, I guess it's a combination of everything, really. When you have the looks, the confidence, the swagger, he's a good-looking boy, he's got the cheeky chappy thing going on as well, and he can sing, he's a talented guy. But also, having met him quite a few times, he's a very humble, genuinely lovely, nice guy as well. When you meet him, he shakes your hand and introduces himself by name, even though we're all aware who he is. He'll always say, "Hi, I'm Harry." But it was obvious from that very first audition that the women and girls were gonna love young Harry.
In February 2013, One Direction released a cover version of the classic Blondie song, One Way or Another, as the 2013 comic relief single. As part of their involvement with the UK charity, One Direction traveled to Ghana to volunteer at a children's hospital, visit schools, and make donations.
They had the biggest young band in the world, basically marketing for them. Goodness knows how many girls picked up the phone and donated a £5 because they're in love with Harry Styles. And it was also great for the boys to show that they had this caring side. They were shown on video going to Africa and working with kids who had AIDS, who were dying, who had malaria. Harry Styles was crying, the other members were crying too, and it really showed you how human that they were.
It is, yeah. It's a charity single, obviously, a cover of the classic Blondie tune, One Way or Another, and yeah, we're just massively honoured to be a part of it, and we're just loving the fact that we get to do something amazing for such an amazing cause.
Most stars who make it when they're very young go off the rails because they don't realise how lucky they are, what an opportunity they have. Now, how much better a way to realise it than flying One Direction out to Africa, seeing children and mums dying in the most humble of conditions, poverty's everywhere, malaria, AIDS, rife. And you could see that they really had this moment where they broke down in tears, and you felt sorry for them because it's a lot to deal with. If you're a teenager or 20 years old and you suddenly see death and you're staring it in the face, it's a huge thing. But you did get the feeling this would bring them down to earth with a huge bump, and that One Direction would keep their feet on the ground in future because they realise how lucky they are.
One Direction embarked on their second concert tour in February 2013, the Take Me Home Tour. The tour consisted of 100 shows in Europe, North America, and Australia. Ticket sales reached 300,000 within a day of release in the UK and Ireland, which included a 6-date sellout at London's O2 Arena. In the Australian and New Zealand markets, tickets grossed $15.7 million, with all 190,000 tickets being sold for the 18 shows to be held. The tour received critical acclaim from the music critics, who praised the band's live vocals and their performance abilities, and was a commercial success with over 1.6 million tickets from 134 shows.
Yeah, I think especially this year it seems to have been just a massive, massive year for British music. I think, you know, Adele, Mumford & Sons, Ed Sheeran, they've all had huge years, and we're very honoured to be part of that, and, you know, people recognise kind of just British music, and it's nice that kind of tonight that's celebrated, because this year it seems to have been especially kind of big for British music, so it's great. It's, you know, we're happy, so it's great.
In mid-2013, One Direction announced the release of a 3D documentary and concert about the group titled One Direction, This Is Us, directed by Morgan Spurlock.
You know, that you suddenly realize that it isn't just a British or an American phenomenon, that once they get outside of the country, everywhere they go, they're being chased by hordes of fans. We were in Mexico City and there's 5,000 people camping outside the hotel. I mean, this is such a massive global phenomenon, and it's only growing. I mean, it was incredible to witness and see.
We just want to show what we're about, and, you know, with, you know, like social media and stuff, there's only so much you can get across in terms of your personality, and, you know, social media and like 10-minute interviews that you do with people. So I think for a way for us to get across what we're like and what we're like with each other, for the fans to see. And I think that's the kind of stuff that they want to see, is like the behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, we just wanted to make a lot of that.
The film was a box office success, topping the UK and US box offices and grossing over $60 million worldwide.
The fact that they're the biggest selling act on planet Earth, it was only right that they would basically take a movie and release it in the cinema. It became the #1 grossing concert movie of all time. I remember covering the premiere in Leicester Square. They had several premieres around the world, but the Leicester Square premiere in London was incredible, when over 10,000 fans turned up to catch a glimpse of the 1D boys on the red carpet. And it was a very clever, poignant film as well. It gave fans access to the boys backstage. We saw them being, you know, genuine and real, interacting with each other. They were very honest and candid on camera, and of course then we got to see them performing as well. It was a massive hit for Sony Pictures. It went to #1 around the world, and of course, come Christmas, it was the #1 best-selling DVD that year.
It was less about seeing stuff that we didn't like and think, oh, we really don't want that in. It was more kind of pulling stuff that we remember doing that we really wanted in. So it was kind of hard. I don't think we realised how hard it'd be to kind of get that cut where you kind of have to lose things that you want to put in. because it's all just such great footage. There's just loads of it.
The merchandising behind One Direction, from books to calendars to t-shirts, is huge. It's like a military operation. This Is Us is the latest cherry on the cake. That's the film about the boys, and it's brilliant because girls want it. Oh my goodness, there are legions of fans, millions of them around the world who really buy into it, and you feel like you're getting that behind-the-scenes look, which is wonderful. It's a bit like the Monkees were in the 60s, where they had their own TV show, and you really saw them japing around, having fun. And I hear that it really gives an insight into the ups, but also the downs. So backstage, the guys really missing home, missing friends, and having a wee bit of a tearful conversation with their mums who are very close to them. And I think we'll know an awful lot more about them by the end of the film.
The film features the song Best Song Ever, which went on to be the lead single for the band's third studio album, Midnight Memories.
So after the cameras followed them around for the This Is Us documentary movie, and after them talking on camera about their story and hanging out backstage, it was obvious that for the Best Song Ever video, One Direction really had to change things up and do something a bit more fun, and that's what they gave their fans. So all 5 lads went into the makeup chair, went into character before they trashed a Hollywood executive room and basically went crazy around some very hot secretaries.
And we danced all night to the best song ever. We knew every line. Now I can't remember how it goes, but I know that I won't forget her. 'Cause we danced all night to the best song ever. I think it went.
They loved making this video. I've spoken to the boys about this video and they just loved every second. Even though they spent hours in makeup with Louis and Niall portraying Hollywood movie moguls. In fact, if you look at the video, Louis looks very much like the character played by Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. Some people said that Niall was parodying Harvey Weinstein, the great Hollywood icon. Zayn transforms into a hot secretary. I mean, everybody was talking about how beautiful Zayn looked as a woman. And I think it was obvious as well that One Direction are budding actors at heart. I think they wanted to showcase that side of them. So, very clever, boys. No harm in having a few more strings to your bow.
Midnight Memories was released globally on the 25th of November 2013. The album was described by the band as edgier and as having a slightly rockier tune compared to their previous albums.
As soon as One Direction announced that they were releasing their third album, Midnight Memories, at the end of 2013, the Directioners, of course, went online and pre-ordered that album in their thousands, if millions. It became the #1 digital pre-order album of 2013. Once again, it debuted at #1 in the UK and in America with huge sales, breaking records in both countries. It went on to be a top 10 best-selling album of that year. And of course, it helped them set up the next arena tour, which will take them around Europe and around the UK in 2014. And what was interesting about Midnight Memories is that it demonstrated a more mature sound. The boys, of course, were growing up. They decided to work with some new musicians. They were songwriting themselves. They co-wrote several tracks on the album. The first time that all 5 of them have started to help with the writing process. Liam, Niall and Harry in particular taking a lead on that. Ed Sheeran as well, giving them a track on the album Littlest Things, which was an incredible and really beautiful record. And of course the setup single, Story of My Life, with that brilliant, very clever but emotional video for the fans and for their families. It was a win-win situation all round.
Despite the band's recent success, Harry's love life was again the topic on everyone's lips.
The paparazzi in Los Angeles followed Harry Styles around everywhere. Of course, at the time, One Direction was just becoming the biggest pop act in America, breaking records, getting #1 records in the album chart, really delivering on every level, and because they were a global phenomenon. But, of course, all attention was also focused on who was Harry hanging out with, who he was dating. So Harry dated Kendall Jenner after they met backstage. I think it was at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. It was a short-lived romance. We think it was about 3 months. She, of course, from this incredible Hollywood family, the Kardashian family, the #1 family of reality TV worldwide. But the poor couple, I mean, they were followed everywhere. Wherever they went in Los Angeles, of course, wherever Harry goes or wherever One Direction go, the paps, the media are there following and documenting every step of their journey. Apparently they were sweet together, they enjoyed each other's company. There's a 2-year age gap between the two of them, but with work commitments for both of them, especially him and his incredibly grueling schedule, it soon fizzled out, but apparently they are still good friends.
with a tour that's set to gross $1 billion, and a new album along the way. One Direction are most definitely set for a bright future.
The reception that this band has found around the world really goes to show that they have a universal appeal, and I don't think that One Direction is going anywhere but up.
But the question on everyone's lips is, what does the future hold for Harry Styles?
Without doubt, I believe that Harry Styles will be and is a star in the making, and he will go on to be a huge selling solo artist. I really believe that he has the charisma, he has the talent, and he has that rock and roll X Factor swagger to go on to do whatever he wants to do, as and when One Direction decide to call it a day. Right now, of course, the boys are having an incredible, successful career. They're selling records and arenas out around the world, and it's working for all 5 of them. I mean, one day they will, of course, call it a day, but I really do believe that he's got that Mick Jagger essence, you know, whatever it is that rock stars need to basically drive women crazy. Styles has it, but he's also got the ability to write some incredible lyrics. He's a real musician at heart as well, but ultimately I think he's a total solo star in the making. I can't wait to see what he does next.
He's the boy who came from nowhere, who would end up being an international superstar. From his humble beginnings on the X Factor to performing in front of millions of fans around the world, Harry Styles' journey has been unique and inspiring, and will continue to fascinate the showbiz world for years to come.